गिरिवरधारी जय गोपी जनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनन्दना व्रज जनरञ्जना यशोदनन्दना व्रज जनरञ्जना यशोदनन्दन व्रज जनरञ्जना यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी गोपी जनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी गोपी जनवल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदनन्दना व्रज जनरञ्जना यशोदनन्दना व्रज जनरञ्जना यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा वनचारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी जय राधा माधवा कुंज बिहारी गोपी जन वल्लभा गिरिवरधारी यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन यशोदानंदन ब्रज जनरंजन यमुना तीरा वनचारी यमुना तीरा यमुना तीरा वनचारी हरे कृष्णा कृष्ण कृष्ण हरे हरे Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare. Hare Rama. जय राधा वृंदावन चंद्र, राधा वृंदावन चंद्र राधे। जय जय जगन्नाथ जगन्नाथ, बलदेव सुभद्रा। जय Jaya Gauranitai, 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 Jaya Gauranitai. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Prabhupada. Nitai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol. कलयुग पावन हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय, हरे कृष्ण महामंत्र की जय, दंतराज श्रीमद् भागवतम की जय, संवेद गौर भक्त वृंद की जय, निताय गौर प्रेमानंदे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय, ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। रीडिंग फ्रॉम श्रीमद् भागवतम। नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्ठिती। कृष्णाय वासुदेवाय देवकी नंदनाय च नंदगोपकुमाराय गोविंदाय नमो नमः। Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 6th canto, chapter 9, the appearance of demon Vitrasur, text number 12. Athavaryan pachanad उत्थितो घोरदर्शनः कृतन्त इव लोकानां युगन्ता समये यथा अथावार्यान् पचनात् उत्थितो घोरदर्शनः कृतन्त इव लोकानां युगन्त समये यथा अथान्वार्या पचनात् उत्थितो घोरदर्शनः कृतन्त इव लोकानां युगन्ता समये यथा युगान्ता। अथान्वार्या पचनात् उत्थितो घोरदर्शनः कृतन्त इव लोकानां युगान्ता समये यथा अथान्वार्य पचनात् उत्थितो घोरदर्शनात् कृतान्त इव लोकानां युगान्त समये यथा अथान्वार्य पचनात् उत्थितो घोरदर्शनः कृतान्त इव लोकानां युगान्त समये यथा। माताजी। अथान्वार्य पचनात् उत्थितो घोरदर्शनात् कृतान्त इव लोकानां कृतान्त समये यथा। Word to word meaning. Atha, thereafter. Anuvarya pachanat, from the fire known as Anuvarya. Uthita, arisen. Ghora darshanaha, appearing very fearful. Kritanta, personified annihilation. Eva, like. Lokanam, of all the planets. Yuganta, of the end of the millennium. Samaya, at the time. Yatha, just as. Translation. Thereafter, from the southern side of the sacrificial fire known as Anavarya came a fearful personality who looked like the destroyer of the entire creation of the end of the millennium. So we'll be reading the next few slokas. Translation. Like arrows released in the four directions, the demon's body grew day after day. Tall and blackish, he appeared like a burnt hill and was lustrous as bright array of clouds in the sky. The hair on the demon's body and his beard and mustache were the color of melted copper, and his eyes were piercing like the midday sun. He appeared unconquerable, as if holding the three worlds on the point of his blazing trident. Dancing and shouting with a loud voice, he made the entire surface of the earth tremble as if from an earthquake. As he yawned again and again, he seemed to be trying to swallow the whole sky and with his mouth, which was as deep as the cave. He seemed to be licking up all the stars in the sky with his tongue and eating the entire universe with his long, sharp teeth. Seeing this gigantic demon, everyone in great fear ran here and there in all directions. Next verse, that was fearful demon who was actually the son of Tishta, covered all the planetary systems by the dint of austerity. Therefore, he was named Vritra, or one who covers everything. Purport. In the Vedas it is said, Sama imala lokana avrot tat vrittasya vrittanam. Because the demon covered all the planetary systems, his name was Vritrasur. The demigods headed by Indra charged the demon with their soldiers, striking him with their own transcendental bows and arrows and other weapons, but Vritrasur swallowed all their weapons. Struck with wonder and disappointment upon seeing the strength of the demon, the demigods lost their own strength. Thereafter, they all met together to try to please the super soul, the supreme personality of Godhead, Narayan, by worshipping him. The demigods said, the three worlds are created by five elements, namely earth, ether, air, fire, water, and earth, which are controlled by various demigods, beginning from Lord Brahma. Being very much afraid that the time factor will end our existence, we offer presentation onto the time by performing our work as time dictates. The time factor himself, however, is afraid of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Therefore, let us now worship the Supreme Lord, who alone can give us full protection. Purport. When one is afraid of being killed, one must take shelter of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. He is worshipped by all the demigods, beginning from Brahma. Although they are in charge of various elements of this material world, the word Bhibata Yasmat indicates that all the demons, regardless of how great and powerful, feared the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The demigods, being afraid of death, took shelter of the Lord and offered him these prayers. Although the time factor is fearful to everyone, fear personified is afraid of the Supreme Lord, who is therefore known as Abhaya, fearless. Taking shelter of the Supreme Lord brings actual fearlessness, and therefore the demigods decided to take shelter of the Lord. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshunu Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Sapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamischa Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatham Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakham Vitamisya Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Pristhaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyata Desatarine Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Padayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namine Gauratishe Namaha He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namastute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Shute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha kalpatarubhyasya kripa sindhu bhaivacha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna. So first of all, I like to seek blessings of all the senior devotees before I could speak on Srimad Bhagavatam. So this section is a very wonderful section, what is going on. You know, we can learn so many pastimes, we can learn so many lessons from this pastime actually. First of all, when I was reading this translations, I was so fascinated when I heard about the appearance of Vritrasur. The appearance of Vritrasur is very amazing. How we always discuss the beautiful qualities of a devotee, but we never discuss how a demon has appeared. But many people outside, if we see, they are so much fascinated. They are so much fascinated to see something vichitra or adbhut. There's so much series of movies which are made where the demon is showed he who takes the form of different ways. He has some mystic power or something else here or the other. But then here in Srimad Bhagavatam, such wonderful description is given about demons also, that we get fascinated, we get attracted, some get attracted to such demons also. So, because the description is like that. When small children read about the description of Vritrasur, or they read about the description of Kaliya or other demons like Bakasur and others, they get fascinated and that attracts their attention towards the Supreme Lord. So this fascination is so very important in this material world. People have towards all different things. So when they get attracted, when they read Srimad Bhagavatam, they may get attracted to, the lessons what they get from hearing these pastimes also. So the description is so very wonderful, tall and blackish, appeared like a burnt hill with lustrous, as bright as cloud in the evening. And the beard is in the molten golden copper like color. So this demon appears to be very, very fearful. And everyone is afraid of the appearance of Vritrasur. Complete earth is trembling whenever he is just taking a single step. Such is the appearance of demon. But later in the pastime we know that how Vritrasur is a great devotee. Whenever we discuss about a devotee, we tell how beautiful he is. The way he acts actually is so very beautiful. He has all good qualities actually. But here is a demon, who is acting in a way which is very, very terrifying to all the demigods, and he's killing all the demigods also. But then we are discussing about him because it's so very important. It has come in Srimad Bhagavatam, and it gives this lesson that though the appearance may be very different from an external point of view, but the internally, the consciousness of a person matters a lot. So when we read about Vritrasur, this factor always comes in the mind that, externally a person might be in a very different situation. His appearance might be very different. His activities might be very different. His circumstantial acting, in a circumstance is very different. But then internal motive is so very important. The internal motive of Vritrasur was so very touching to the Supreme Lord that, he appeared to please the Supreme Lord. Just because he got the curse from Mother Parvati, this demon has appeared actually. And he has come in such a way that he's wanting to please the Supreme Lord. He just wants to finish this life and please the Supreme Lord by whatever way he's acting. So many times we see people or devotees, they are in very different situations. And then we start judging them very externally actually. And because, we externally judge them, and then, it becomes a different situation for us. We judge them by their wrongdoings or their wrong behavior or appearance. We see the example in Chaitanya Charitamrita, where it comes, Gadadhar Pandit, when he was taken to Pundarik Vidyanidhi, his appearance was so different than from a devotee. He was lying on a very beautiful cot. His servants were massaging his feet. They were applying oil on his head, and he was eating tambul, pan. And then, he was, so nicely in a very different situation. As a devotee, no one is attracted in that situation. But then, Gadadhar Pandit also was thinking the same way. But just then, after that, Mukunda started singing the glories of the Lord. And that changed the complete paradigm of the situation. Now, Gadadhar Pandit later was lamenting when he saw the Pundarik Vidyanidhi's ecstasy. The way his ecstasy was exhibited when he heard the glories of the Lord. So when he was judging externally how, the person's appearance is or how the situation is around. But then it's like just by judging a person externally, it's like we may start committing an offense also. So Vritrasur also, he was committing an offense in one way. He was killing the demigods. But externally he was doing like that. But internally his heart was very much connected to the Supreme Lord. So this is very important that we don't judge any person on the external basis actually. We see many more examples, this, we see the example of this Peter Budwash. Huh? No, Crazy Peter. Peter Budwash, na? Peter Budwash. So he was playing tennis. In one way, a devotee is not, is supposed to act in that way that, he's playing tennis or anything like that. But then he's playing tennis, and for externally he's, doing something which, something which is not proper. But then he's caring for the ants, because Prabhupada has told that one should be compassionate towards every living entity. He's caring for the small ants which are lying on the field, on the court. So externally, he may be in a different appearance, doing an external different activity, but then his motive is to please, a pure devotee. So the motive is very important. Whatever the situation is there, we may not be able to understand the situation, why the living entity is in that situation. But then the motive is to please the Lord or please the pure devotee. Then it's very important that we don't judge such devotees actually. We see the example of Crazy Peter also. People were so afraid. Devotees were so afraid when devotees were going out for Harinam, and he was throwing, blaspheming them and everything. Eventually, after some time, because of association with devotees, he became Krishadut Prabhu, right? Krishadut Prabhu. So externally, the appearance of a devotee is, we just cannot judge, how people act actually. But internally, the motivation is very important. That it's very important that we don't judge them. This verse comes in Nectar of Instruction. Drishte sabhava janater vapachasta doser. In that verse, Rupa Goswami Pada is telling, just by seeing an external impurities of a devotee, of a pure devotee, if we start judging, and then, we cannot take complete benefit of that person. Rather than we start offending a person just by seeing the external features of the person, And in the same way, if Ganges, though it may be impure in certain ways, but then a devotee understands the importance of taking bath in Ganges, and then he takes bath in Ganges also. So it's important that, we don't judge externally, and, because it may lead to offenses, and after that, it may be very dangerous for one's spiritual life actually. There are few lessons when I was reading this pastime, there are few lessons which came up in my mind. Just wanted to discuss those things. If you see how Indra acted actually, Indra acted just on instinct. He just saw that Vishwarup was performing the sacrifice, and then immediately he wanted to, he saw that the Vishwarup was performing obligations on behalf of demons also. And because of that thing, he got so much insecure, he got so much afraid that, something will happen to me, that he immediately took action and he killed Vishwarup. So this is such an important thing that, people just act on instinct, and then the consequences are so very different. Indra had to go for 1 year of penance. He had to take the sin of killing a spiritual master, killing the priest who was performing the sacrifice, and then eventually he had to share the sins with others. So it's very important that, we don't act on instincts actually, and then we don't know what the consequences ahead will be coming. I remember one example, what I read in one of the newspapers earlier. A person, he was living in the neighborhood, and a person saw another person, elderly person, came up with a very strong bamboo, and he was running in that direction of the person. And this person became so afraid that he thought that he's about to hit me on the head. And, so in a instinct, he just thought that, I should protect myself and I should destroy this person. So the situation was in a way that it could have been easily be handled, but this person became agitated and he took some stones and started hitting that elderly person. And eventually that person died. But he later on realized that the person was trying to save from the very strong bull which was coming behind and about to hit that person. That he did not realize at all. But then he just thought that this person is coming with a bamboo stick and about to hit me. He just took a stone and hit him on the head, and that person died. But then he was, because people just act on instincts. There are so many situations where things go change, and then the life of that other person is gone. And the person who had hit him, he had to go to jail actually, and face the consequences of living in jail for a long time. So externally, means if we act on instinct, we see so many different things happening. In Srimad Bhagavatam also we see, Shringi, when he just heard how Parikshit Maharaj had acted, and immediately without thinking for a single moment, he just cursed Parikshit Maharaj. On an instinct, he just cursed. That how can a Kshatriya act in such a way? He doesn't understand the importance of a Brahmana. And then immediately he cursed, and that was the result, that the world, had to lose such a wonderful emperor like Parikshit Maharaj. And then Kali came and entered as Kali Raj. So when we act on instincts, then the situation changes like anything. Dashrath Maharaj also, he just acted on instinct, and then the complete Ramayana took place because of just acting on instinct, just hearing the few drops of water, and then an animal drinking the water, and immediately he just shot the arrow without considering any this thing. So this is very important for a person, that a person should not act on any instincts, whereas he should be very careful in how the way he acts. Before acting, he should just think. There was this small status I saw on WhatsApp. It was showing, before speaking, you connect your tongue and the mind, Before speaking anything, please connect your mind and the tongue, and then you speak. Then the consequences are very good. If you don't connect it, then the consequences can be very, very dangerous. So it's very important that, we are very careful in how we act. So this is one of the lessons what we were thinking, and then the importance of how Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has given this, the chanting, the chanting of the holy name is so very, very beneficial. Just by chanting a mantra here and there, a person who was about to kill Indra, now he happened to be killed by Indra, just because the chanting of few mantras or one mantra was not properly pronounced. But here Lord is so merciful that He has given the holy name, and there are no hard and fast rules actually. That we can chant the mantra, as Vishwarup Prabhu was telling, in Chinese devotees cannot pronounce Krishna also, and Hare also properly. But still Lord is so very happy when He sees the intention and the importance of chanting, that we may be able to chant properly, then it's so very beneficial. But there are no hard and fast rules that Lord has kept. If we just imagine if there are some hard and fast rules for performing, doing this chanting also, then there was no position that we could ever chant the holy name of the Lord. If we just imagine, sometimes if we imagine putting us in different situation, then the situation changes a lot. But then Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is so very merciful that He has not allowed, not kept any rules for chanting. He has given, He is so beneficial that everyone can take part, and be benefited just by chanting this holy name. So this is one of the important lessons. Now we see here how demigods, they are acting actually. They are so very fearful. Now whenever a situation comes that they are about to lose the life, then immediately one has to take shelter. If one doesn't take shelter of the Supreme Lord, then the situation goes very different. Especially we see how everyone is afraid of death. What is the cause of fear actually? Though when a living entity or a soul enters this material world, he is very pure. But then because of his identification with the material body and material conception of life, and his identification with the material world, it makes it very difficult, because his identification with a wrong thing, that's why he becomes very fearful. This fear is there. The demigods are very afraid of being killed by Vitrasur. Why? Because they are fearing that they will lose this body. Because they are identifying themselves with this body, and they are identifying with the material situation around. That's why the soul is very afraid. The moment, Prabhupada tells in one of the lectures, the moment one becomes spiritual, one becomes spiritual in his consciousness, then what happens? All his fear is taken away. Because why? Because as soon as we take shelter of the Lord, Supreme Lord, who is Abhaya, then immediately we become Abhaya, means we become very fearless, because we are taking shelter of the Supreme Lord. So the nature of this material world is, it's always fearful. People become very afraid of what? They are very afraid of Kal. That any time can change any situation like anything. Time is such a powerful factor of the Supreme Lord that it can change the situation just time can change the situation like anything actually. A rich man can become a pauper actually. A king can become, a captive soldier actually in a jail. Just time can change anything. And we see how time is so very important. We are so fortunate that we are in the right time actually. We are in the right time. How we are so fortunate that we are in the right time of this Kali Yuga, where Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's golden period is going on. And we are so fortunate that we have come to this Krishna consciousness movement in the shelter of Srila Prabhupada, in the association of the right people at the right place, and in the right with the right motive to go back to Godhead. This time is so very important that it can affect the living entity's complete lifespan. When the time is very proper. If he is in the right situation at the right time, with the right association, and practicing with the right intention to achieve the right goal, then his achievement can be done very easily. But the same person, if he is in the wrong association or on the wrong time, and in the wrong place, then things can go in a very wrong direction. So this is very important that we understand the situation, the importance of time. Kal is very, very strong energy of the Lord. It can really put us in a very strong position, or it can make us go in a very wrong, very wrong place. I remember, this Hayagriva Maharaj, when Radhanath Maharaj was telling about Hayagriva Prabhu, he was telling that how he met Srila Prabhupada. He happened to be traveling across the 26th 2nd Avenue when Prabhupada was walking around, and he happened to just come exactly on the right time, and he saw Srila Prabhupada. And his complete life got changed because he was walking just opposite, and then he saw Srila Prabhupada, and he knew who was his sannyasi. And immediately he came to the other side of the road and he met Srila Prabhupada. The proper timing was so very important. If he would have taken the different turn, and he was about to take a turn, Maharaj tells actually, he was about to take another turn, but somehow he did not take that turn, and he turned in the right direction, and Srila Prabhupada was there on the other side of the road. So the timing was so very important that, because he could see, he could come in contact with the pure devotee. So we see, many times, how time factor is so very important. We see in the example of Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj, when he was, running away from the soldiers. The timing was so very important. He just knocked on the professor's door and entered. And there he happened to sell a complete set of Prabhupada books, that too standing order. And then, and he got saved. The timing was so very important, and he could convince the people so nicely. So the time factor is so very important, and the timing is so very important. To be in the right time, in the right situation is so very important, and to be in doing the right thing. If one can do this, then he'll be so very much be benefited actually. So we tell in cricket also the right timing is very important for playing a nice shot. Same way for a devotee, the right timing is that he's in the right association and doing the right thing with the right intention, and he can really be benefited by being in the right association also. So it one can be very much be fortunate enough that we are so very fortunate that we are in the right moment at the right time. Just imagine if you would have been 200 years ago, you will have taken birth in India, and this moment was not there, and it would have been very tough for us to practice spiritual life also. Yeah, we might be practicing some pious life, but we would have not been practicing the way we are practicing right now, because the timing is so very important. Now the timing is so very important that we could take such a great benefit of the time what we are there. And we can really get benefited from this wonderful thing. So how do we become fearless? We become fearless when we take shelter of the Supreme Lord, and when we are not in, if we are not in in touch with the Supreme Lord, then we become very fearful, because we are very much afraid that this material body will be harmed, or any situation will harm my harm me or my surroundings. Then we become very much fearful, and whatever is mine, if someone is about to harm, then we become very fearful, because we identify with those objects actually. Then we become very fearful, because there is a expectation of losing it, or expectation of someone is getting more than that thing. So this expectation that because we are identifying with the wrong thing. But the same way, if we just identify with the Supreme Lord, we just practice our spiritual life very nicely and connect ourselves with the Supreme Lord, then our spiritual life becomes so very active, and this is how we can become very fearless. Abhaya we can become, because Bhaja Hure Mana Sri Nanda Nandana Abhaya Charana Arabindare. So without taking the shelter of the Supreme Lord, it's not possible for us to become fearless actually. So every person has to take shelter of the Supreme Lord, or else he'll be so much be afraid. We have seen so many examples actually in this material, in our movement only, that devotees have left their body, and they were so much fearless actually when they were leaving the body. Recently when we discuss about, we have seen from Prabhupada times, and how Prabhupada was not at all afraid of anything. He was so very satisfied when he left the body. We see his disciples leaving the body. Bhakti Tirtha Maharaj was in complete ecstasy when he was living in the body. He was not at all fearless. He was completely in the hands of Krishna. And when we see, many devotees who are practicing this spiritual life, how they become fearless actually. And their aspirations is that, they're going in the hands of Krishna. Krishna is properly taking care of me. We see the example of Shriji, small dog, the granddaughter of Bhadravati Mataji. When she left the body, devotees were so much touched actually, because she was so completely fearless actually. She was in such a consciousness that she was, in touch with Krishna. And, there was not at all a tinge of fear on her body, though the body was going in such a great turmoil actually. Recently, Radhesham Prabhu, we were in Boston, one Mataji from Hyderabad, Barsana Rani Mataji, she left the body actually. And Radhesham Prabhu shows this video later on in many of his classes also. Barsana Rani Mataji, she left the body. And she was in complete, in proper consciousness, of always thinking of Krishna. And in next lifetime, she was definitely with Krishna. That was her aspiration, and that was her. And the way she left the body with devotees surrounding, and so peacefully she left the body, even though she was having cancer. And within, I think 3 months or 2 months, I think she was preparing herself very strongly for leaving the body, and she left the body without a tinge of fear actually. So a devotee can be fearless, but apart from that, other people outside, they just cannot be fearless. They are very fearful, because time is such a factor that when it comes, it will destroy, because they are identifying with the wrong things. They identify with the body, they identify with their family, their house, their money, whatever they have put energy, complete energy throughout the life, that has been taken away. But for a devotee, he knows that Krishna is there, and Krishna is always there for me to in the next moment also. So that's how one become very fearless actually. So it's very important that we take shelter of the Supreme Lord. We practice our spiritual life very nicely. We be in the right situation, right time, in the right moment, right place, in the right association, so that we become fearless actually eventually. And because our identification is with our material things around, that's why there is a cause of fear. But because the identification, if we just change it to spiritual things, then things become very, very easy actually for us. Today being Loknath Goswami's disappearance day also, we'll just discuss few things about Loknath Goswami also. Loknath Goswami was born just three years before Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was born in 1486, and Loknath Goswami Pad was born in 1483 in Talkohri village in Jeshuri district in Bangladesh. So his father and mother were Padmanabh and Sita Devi. And Padmanabh Chakravarti, he was very much inclined towards Advaita Acharya. He was so much in relationship with Advaita Acharya that when Advaita Acharya had started a school, Advaita Parikshit, then that time Padmanabh, he came and he learned under Advaita Acharya. And he was such a strong and beautiful, strong student that he learned everything very nicely from Advaita Acharya. And then when later Loknath Goswami was born, because Padmanabh was such a strong student that, Advaita Acharya himself gave him the title Chakravarti. So Padmanabh Chakravarti and Sita Devi, to them Loknath Goswami was born. And Loknath Goswami was born just 3 years before Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And because being in, after that they shifted to Navdeep. And he also came and learned all the scriptures, Srimad Bhagavatam and other scriptures from Advaita Acharya actually. And during that time, he was constantly seeing Nimai Pandit. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was acting as a Nimai Pandit, and he was so much attracted towards Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu when he was small child, because they were almost like contemporaries, just being around. And he was so very attracted to Lord. And when Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, met him one day just before taking sannyas, he met him, Loknath Goswami, and during that time, before that, Loknath Goswami's parents also, they left the body. And after that, Loknath Goswami was serving Chaitanya Mahaprabhu only, when he took the form of a devotee. And during that time, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu revealed that, I'll be taking sannyas eventually, within some time. And Loknath Goswami was so much attracted by the beautiful form of the Lord that he started crying, and he was crying for the effect what will happen on the devotees. And because he could not take the form of the Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, taking the form of a sannyasi, with and shaving his head and other things. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu told him that he should go to Vrindavan after taking sannyas, I'll come and meet you. And because he could not take that thing, and so Loknath Goswami took this instruction, and then he left towards Vrindavan. But eventually we know that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, after taking sannyas, he went to Jagannath Puri on the request of Sachi Devi, and then he went from there to South India. And what happened, Loknath Goswami, he came to know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is traveling to South India. And he was in such a desperation that it has been such a long time that I have not seen the Lord, and I want to be in his association. That he immediately from Vrindavan, he started coming towards South India. And when he reached South India, that time Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Loknath Goswami came to know that, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is not here in South India, but he has gone back to Puri. So he started walking towards Puri again. And by the time he reached Puri, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu went to Vrindavan. And he was thinking, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had given me the instruction that I should be in Vrindavan. Now I am, traveling all over India, all different places, but I am not there where Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is there. So he started again going towards Vrindavan. And by the time he reached Vrindavan, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu left Vrindavan. And then he was so much in great desperation that how could this happen, And he came to know that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is in Prayag. So he wanted to leave immediately from Vrindavan to Prayag. But then that night, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came in the dream of Loknath Goswami, and he told, you be in Vrindavan. You need not travel to different places, searching for me. And then he gave him spiritual instructions in the dream and others. And then he told Rup Goswami and Sanatan Goswami will be coming eventually, and you need to take care of all those Goswamis. So, and because of that instructions, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Loknath Goswami was in Vrindavan, and then then eventually Rup Goswami Pad and Sanatan Goswami came to Vrindavan, and they had very wonderful discussions and about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and other things. So this is how the Loknath Goswami was living in Vrindavan. In Vrindavan he had found a very beautiful devotee with him, that was Bhugarbha Goswami. They were like very, very wonderful friends in one way, The relationship between them was very, very strong actually. And, devotees were so much inspired in Vrindavan, especially to see the wonderful relationship between Loknath Goswami and Bhugarbha Goswami. And eventually Loknath Goswami was chanting, at different places in Vrindavan. And one day while chanting at the banks, on the banks of Kishorukund, there he was aspiring that, I should be able to serve the deities. I don't have any deities, I want to serve the deities. And just after some time, Lord himself walks and comes to him, and, he hands over himself in the form of deities. And he wants that, I want you to worship these deities. And that is Radha Vinod actually. So Radha Vinod himself actually comes and, wants that, Loknath Goswami should serve. And eventually Loknath Goswami's desire to serve the deities has been fulfilled. And he serves the deities very nicely. He makes a bed in the Vrindavan and puts all the flowers, making some, the deities tells, we are very hungry, no one was serving us, so please make some prasad and serve. So Loknath Goswami makes wonderful prasad and serves them. And eventually, there are many Brajbasis wanted to serve Loknath Goswami and Radha Vinod deities. But then he thought, it's very difficult because I am traveling all over the Vrindavan. It's not possible. So he made a very wonderful bag, and in that bag he made the deities, he kept the deities, and he used to travel all over the Vrindavan and, all over the Vraj and, taking care of Radha Vinod. The deities were very close to their heart. So in that way he was taking care of Radha Vinod deities. And one more pastime comes about Loknath Goswami is about how Narottam Das Thakur has taken initiation from Loknath Goswami. Everyone knows the pastime of Narottam Das Thakur, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had himself predicted that a very wonderful Vaishnava devotee will be coming, very powerful devotee will be coming. That is Narottam. He looked in the direction of, he went and deposited Krishna Prem in the river Padmavati. And, eventually told the river Padmavati that, when Narottam takes bath, you should give him this Krishna Prem. So, Padmavati river, when Narottam Das Thakur takes bath in Padmavati river, he gets Krishna Prem. And he wants to, he goes eventually to, as Nityanand Prabhu guides him to, Nityanand Prabhu and Chaitanya Mahaprabhu guides him to go to Vrindavan. And then he eventually goes to Vrindavan. And there he is so much inspired by the renunciation of Loknath Goswami. Loknath Goswami's one quality was he never happened to take any service from any devotee. He was such a renounced sadhu or such a renounced Goswami that he never happened to take any service from any devotee. Even though he's serving the deities also, Radha Vinod deities, but he made everything very personal to the Lord. He never happened to take any services. Though Vrajbasis wanted to build a temple or to do something, but it was like very own personally he was taking care of the deities. So there was no, Loknath Goswami had taken a vow that I will never accept a disciple. But then, Narottam Das Thakur was so much inspired by Loknath Goswami that he just wanted to take initiation from Loknath Goswami. And he was trying a way that he wants to serve Loknath Goswami. So whenever he approached Loknath Goswami, he was rejected actually. He was not given any service. But then he thought a way of serving. A devotee is very intelligent. He knows how to somehow find, if we have tussle also with any devotee, we can easily solve it. But only thing we should know how to, serve that devotee. Very secretly or, directly or any way we can serve the devotee. So Narottam Das Thakur found a way that, whenever Loknath Goswami is going and, going for his morning duties, that, he can clean that area and, keep that area very clean. So eventually, Loknath Goswami wonders a day that, why everything, earlier it was not clean, but a few days, it's getting clean. Who is doing this service? Then one night, Loknath Goswami hides in the bush and, he's just waiting to watch who is doing this. And when he sees Narottam Das Thakur, who is a Mahashay, he's a son of a king actually. And he is actually grabbing the stool and cleaning the complete area very nicely. That time he sees the determination of Narottam Das Thakur. And that touches Loknath Goswami. And eventually Loknath Goswami accepts Narottam Das Thakur as his disciple. So there are only two instances in our, what we have heard, that, Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj also never accepted any disciple. And it was Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's great determination and the vow that I will not accept any other shelter apart from my spiritual master, that is Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj. The same way we hear about the determination of Narottam Das Thakur, how he was so very determined to take Narottam Das Loknath Goswami as his spiritual master. And eventually Lord and the pure devotee saw the determination and they were very pleased and they accepted actually. So we speak about initiation. Somehow we are fortunate that, we get initiation eventually, within 5 years or 6 years. Some devotees who might be waiting for a long time, if we read this pastime of Gaur Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj or Narottam Das Thakur, they should be at least consoled that, spiritual master is now, our spiritual master in this moment are not so very strong that, they have not declined, that they will not accept any initiation or anything like that. But they eventually just have to wait for some time and then they are accepted actually. So, this is what we learn from Loknath Goswami. And we can pray to Loknath Goswami today that, we also developed a tinge of love towards the lordships and the way he has led the life of a renounced person, that, that we should also develop some renunciation in our life and which will be helpful in our practice of bhakti. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki, Jai Samved Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki, Jai Nitai Gaur Premanande, Hari Hari Gaur.